Jamell, thanks for coming on today. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having
No problem. Yeah, I suppose I'll jump straight into it. So I'll introduce you first. So you're Jamell Anderson. There's a lot of people from Ireland that watch this, so they may not know who you are because, unfortunately, people don't necessarily always follow British basketball over in this country, in Ireland. I just recently moved back. So Jamell plays for the Leicester Riders in the BBL. He's also played in Australia in the, I think, NBL D1, I think it was. Played in Spain in, I think it's Leb Silver. And then you're also on the GB, which is the GB national team. So yeah, that's the intro. One of the reasons I wanted you on, Jamell, is because we crossed paths when you were a lot younger. And like, from my point of view, you're one of these players that were, I kind of was struck by the fire you played with. I really liked that. You had a lot of energy. You were an incredible athlete for your age, and that came with a little bit of hype. I mean, Hoops Fix, for example. I mean, everyone kind of knows Hoops Fix in GB. Some people in Ireland are aware of it, but he was one of those guys that started kind of giving exposure to younger players, and particularly players who were able to make like highlight plays like you were. But the thing that was really impressed me about you when I met you, and I was like 28, 29, I felt like I was in the peak of when I was playing, was that you played both ends of the floor and the intensity. You played defense, and we kind of just like locked horns a few times at university. I was a bit older, but I was really impressed, and it's just been really cool for me to kind of see how you've progressed now into the player you are now. So that was one of the reasons I wanted to get you on, because we crossed paths, and you've kind of developed and stayed with us. And you do see some guys who kind of trail off, but you stayed the course, and that was kind of my primary reason for reaching out. So just to explain that part to you. So yeah, you're from Nottingham originally.
Yep.
Correct?
Yep.
Never thought about playing for Nottingham. I know they're like NBL Division 1 now. I suppose they're not in the right league, first of all, if you want to.
No, I mean, it's crazy. Like, I had this conversation with my fiance maybe a couple of months ago. And I came to a realization, and I was like really sad, because I said to her, oh my gosh, like I just realized that the way that our lives are going, there's not really going to be an opportunity for me to represent my hometown now. Like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, in the middle of, you know, what is now a 10-year professional career that I've had, I remember thinking, you know what, once I'm done playing, like, you know, chasing whatever it is I'm chasing, I'm going to go back and play for Nottingham. You know, and really like show them, you know, like I'm so much better than I was as a kid, and I want to represent you guys. But the way my life's going now, I don't think that's ever really.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, and I'm from a small town in Ireland, and my coach has asked me many times to come back and play, but it's just never worked out, because I've ended up moving to Dublin and down the country.
Right,
and
that's my point. Yeah, I'm not going to live in Nottingham. So
not going to live in Nottingham. Is Nottingham close to Leicester?
It is. It is very, very close.
Ah, so you've got Leicester, but then I'm really like an hour away from my hometown. So, but if you don't live there, it's still a bit of a stretch to get there. So it's not really feasible. Okay, interesting. I just know Tintin. Spent a bit of time with him, and he's Nottingham local as well, isn't he?
Yeah.
There's a couple of other guys that I went on tournaments with from Nottingham, and nice bunch of lads. Nice bunch of lads.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, the only bit I don't know about is your high school. So I assume you went to high school in Nottingham. Is that right?
Yeah, well, I went to South Nottingham College.
I don't know. I don't think about that. Was it like a basketball school in particular, or just all sports type?
All sports. I just did a BTEC over the 2 years that I was there.
Okay. And then, so I thought I saw, when I was just, I always do a little bit of research for these podcasts, and one of the things I thought I saw was a picture of you very young doing athletics. Is that, did I make that up, or did I?
No. Athletics was my first sport.
Ah, interesting. And you know, maybe that makes sense with given your athleticism. I don't know if it's the nurture nature bit, but like, did you do a lot of athletics? Was that something you were actually going to go and try and keep going and doing? or was that?
Yeah, I mean, I did it because my mom did it and my grandma. They're both in Nottingham. And yeah, at school I did cross country.
Cross country.
And I got kind of, say again?
I was going to say, like, did you do any like shorter distance stuff, like 400 meters, or just always cross country?
Not really. Like a lot of my stuff was long distance. I'm not really sure why. I thought I was fast, but no, I enjoyed it. That's why I loved the long distance. I really did. So
interesting. Yeah, that would explain it, because I mean, you were. That was the other thing I liked to. Well, I didn't enjoy it when I was marking you, but you were just up and down the court like a bloody gazelle, and I was like, this guy just keeps running. I didn't like that, because like I was normally the guy that was like, I had a good engine. And then you were my size. You were 6'6". You were strong. You weren't quite strong, big as you are now, but you were strong, and you just kept running every time the ball was taken out. So maybe the cross country, that explains some of that. You had a good engine.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. Yeah. And actually, that would make sense then. Instead of just being a sprinter, you kind of maybe gas out early. That explains the defense as well, doesn't it? Because you're a cross country runner. Yeah, it's starting to add up now.
It all played a big part in my athleticism, for sure.
Yeah, and athletics, it's kind of a disciplined one. Like I knew one guy that used to sprint for Scotland when I was up at uni there, and he trained me, and the discipline he had just to train for the preparation and the kind of lifting and all that kind of stuff, he was very focused in. So was that something that like he kind of helped you? Do you think, like, just doing athletics, or just not necessarily maybe?
I think it made being tired like an okay thing. Like it wasn't like when I got to basketball, being tired just felt like that's normal, and you can push through that, because obviously when you do cross country, there's so many parts in the race where you're feel exhausted. Like there's nothing left in the tank, but there is.
Right.
So I think once I got to basketball, I still had that mindset. And to be honest with you, it was probably all mindset rather than my actual physical ability. I just felt like I could keep going.
That's really interesting, because it's not like it affected your explosiveness, because like a lot of theory, like, fast twitch fibers, you shouldn't go and you definitely wouldn't, like, maybe as a basketball trainer, let's say, basketball specific S&C, you certainly wouldn't suggest for someone to start doing cross country training.
No.
It didn't affect you, and certainly didn't affect your explosiveness or your, so that's interesting, actually. And it just kind of goes to show that, you don't necessarily just have to be doing plyometrics, or, having a good cardio even for long distance can help.
Oh.
But even the mental, like you said, just being able to push through and keep going, and that kind of mental toughness for being tired. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. That's I didn't see the conversation going down that route. Okay, so then I'm just trying to see, at what point then did you feel like, so when you were playing when you were younger, was there a point at which you started, were you like a bit more of a late bloomer when it comes to like getting on like a national kind of stage, like national team? And what club did you play for underage before you necessarily went to university in Loughborough? So maybe that bit. That's the bit I didn't really know.
Late bloomer is the nicest way of putting it.
Oh, really? Really? Okay.
Yeah, so I didn't start playing basketball until I was 15.
Wow. Okay.
And I didn't realize the opportunities that were in basketball until probably, I would say, 17, 18 almost. I was just in love with basketball. I didn't think, I'm going to go play in the NBA. Nothing like that. I just didn't know about that stuff. I was very naive to the world of sport at that age.
Right. So even the idea of playing like somewhere else, going to America for college or anything like that, it wasn't even in your window or your viewpoint or whatever. It wasn't.
It was mentioned to me by my first actual coach. He said it to me, and I focused on what the goal he gave me rather than the destination.
Right.
So he said to me, Listen, if you can learn to dribble with your left hand without looking at the ball, this is when I first ever started playing.
Right, right.
That, I'll send you to high school in America. And I ignored the high school part and just focused on being able to. It was like I just wanted to impress him, you know.
Right.
And yeah, it wasn't until the first proper coach that I had sat me down and said, "Look, you know, you've got something here," and blah 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 blah. That I actually started to take it seriously.
Okay, and then when do you think you made the kind of leap into, because you're starting to play obviously organized basketball at that point, and then when do you think you made the leap into feeling like, oh, this is actually something I've progressed to this pretty quickly. I've caught up with guys my age now. Was there a kind of a, just before you went to uni, kind of you started to see? Because you're still in Leicester at this point, right? You're still playing with the Leicester.
No. I didn't play for Leicester till I was 21.
Okay.
21?
Okay.
Yeah, 21. But it was my coach. I had a coach called Curtis Xavier. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
Name rings a bell, actually, but
yeah,
is he in Leicester?
He's in Nottingham.
Oh, he's in Nottingham. Okay.
My only tie to Leicester is Leicester Riders, so
right. Okay.
That's when that started. But Nottingham was everything. So Tintin, David Watts, he was my actual first coach, really. But Curtis Xavier overseed him as a coach, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Yeah, he was like the senior coach.
Yeah, and when I got a bit older, Curtis would become my coach.
Okay.
So yeah, Curtis was the person that planted the seed about, you know, becoming a pro and having those kind of conversations. So I would say about 17 was when I started to really take it seriously and, you know, invest all my time to try and become a pro.
Wow, that's so like late to get it. I can see now why, like, because at the time when I saw you, I mean, you were maybe 3 years older, or 2 or 3 years older than that. And I was thinking, like, I wonder why maybe he hasn't taken that route, but to go to America, let's say, that's a lot of people do this kind of route. But then, given how late you were coming into it, you would have been blind to all that anyway. So there's no way you could have turned that around in a year or two to just have an opportunity. It's just too, there's not enough time. Or was there?
It was a bit late. It was a bit late, honestly, but I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been Namo Shire from London, who used to run on the Midnight Madness stuff.
Namo, yeah, I know.
Yeah, he put me in touch. He spoke on my behalf to Stonybrook University.
Stonybrook, yeah, I know.
And they offered me a 4-year scholarship, man. Like
that's the D1 schools, mid-majors, yeah. And at the time, so that was an actual option at the table. So is this when you were a year into uni, or was this?
Did I? Yeah, I would have done a year of uni at that point in Essex.
In Essex,
when I was the Essex Pirates. And
okay, so you went from high school to Essex, just to get the timeline. Sorry, John, I didn't interrupt.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah, so you went from high school and then you played a year with Essex before you went to Loughborough University. Is that right?
No, so I did high school in Nottingham.
High school.
Then I did under-20s GB, which got me the call up for the Essex Pirates team. So then I did a year in Essex Pirates, a whole season in the BBL with no studying. And then the second year with the Essex Pirates, I got enrolled into Essex University.
Essex University. All right. Did I get confused here? I thought you went to Loughborough.
I did. That's it's a long story, man.
There's steps.
How long you got, bro?
Yeah, there's always steps that I seem to miss. Okay, right. Yeah, there's kind of I just assumed. Okay, so then wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. Like, so you went Essex, then you went. Where did you say that after that?
So after Essex, that's when I went to Leicester.
Leicester. Okay, right. So then, and that's where you played for Leicester, and you also had the scholarship with Loughborough.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Interesting. I'm just going to keep it to a couple of questions. So this is my attempt to try and do 45 minutes and not an hour and a half. We'll see how it goes. So, oh yeah, I have a question here. So you've arrived into Loughborough and Leicester at this point, right?
Yeah.
And as I said, look, you were featured on a bunch of on a bunch of. I mean, you're featured on a bunch of Hoops Fix videos, and actually, this is I think when I roughly ran into you. You playing for English unis, and I was playing for Scottish unis or whatever it was. And actually, before that, there was the British Trophy, wasn't there? We played you guys in the final of the British.
That's right.
Bucks Trophy.
Yeah.
And we I don't know how we did it, but we won it the first year. We played against I've forgotten their name now. Some university from the very southern tip. Bud Johnson was playing for them. Do you know Bud Johnson?
Yeah.
But University of.
What team that is? I know what you're talking about too.
Yeah, they're on the south. So we played them. We actually ended up winning, and then we got back to the final next year because we had all the same players, and we played you guys, and we just were able to do a little bit of scouting, and then I found you, and I was going to play the clip, but I won't bother. But like, it was a very young you, and just like super athletic, and there was a lot of hype behind you. And I was just wondering at the time, because there was so many videos, thinking about it now, there probably wasn't. But did you ever feel any pressure because there was so much, so these videos, or did you just think, yeah, great, there's videos, I don't care, like I'm just going to play? Or did you feel like because there was a lot of hype, there's a lot of expectation? Did you ever feel any pressure from that, or no, to like live up to a certain hype that was behind you? Because there was you got more media attention than certainly from where I could see it than a lot of the guys even your age. Like let's say Connor wouldn't have got that exposure because he wasn't doing crazy highlight dunks like you were. Did you ever feel any pressure from that, or did you kind of go, that's just someone taking videos, people think what they think?
To be honest with you, it just kind of made me excited. Like if I saw a camera around, I was like, "Ooh, like let's try something, or let's really try and think." My friends in the basketball used to say to me like, "You always show up when there's cameras. You always show up when someone's when Hoops Fix is around." But yeah, I don't know. It was just an extra motivation, really.
Yeah, and that's fair, and that's the way to look at it, right? And there is an element of entertainment when people are watching as well, and it is good to show these things. And actually, for the British game, I think it's great to see young players that are exciting to watch as well. As much as like that's not what you're trying to do on the basketball court, and as I say, your focus wasn't always you could play both ends of the floor, which is something I really really liked. But it was just nice to see a bit of excitement around the game. Nice to see some British guys that were able to get up and, you were dunking on loads of people. So, so it was just great to watch. It was just exciting. Okay, so that was one question I wanted to ask you. So, yeah, Loughborough. So the decision then to kind of play. So yeah, we kind of covered off the bit about like you didn't go to the US. That wasn't the route you took. And I suppose you're one of these guys that like people would probably thinking like, oh, he didn't take the US route, but he's still done very well. And that was something that was brought up. Hoops Fix did a podcast with the top guys from the BBL, the owners from the four clubs, top four clubs, the Newcastle Eagle, Paul Blake. Is it the guy from Russell Levingston? Is that the guy from your club? He's the
Kevin Routledge is our owner, but Russell Levingston is the GM.
Is the GM, right?
Yeah.
And there was someone from Plymouth, and they were just talking about one of the topics was bringing up like these young players going to America, and is it always a good idea? And do the players get development in the UK the same way they would develop in the US? And the kind of conclusion they came to was the top guys, they go to the top colleges. That's a good thing, but some of them go to some place in the country and they don't get the same treatment, and they get left behind. They sit on the benches, they come back, and then it's not a good idea. So they kind of gave you as an example, and I think Connor as well, of somebody who stayed in the UK, developed here, has done well. So like it was just interesting that was the example that they gave. Did you feel like the developments in the UK, when you see some of these guys come back, did you see that they had developed quicker? Or it's probably hard to compare. But like, if you know any guys that were in your kind of cohort or your generation that came back, and I suppose it depends where they went and did they play that much, right?
So there's a few things that I look at in terms of the difference of going to America and staying in England. And I think some of the things I'm about to say have changed in certain areas of,
right.
But I felt like I was very lucky in my upbringing because I was always gravitating towards the strength and conditioning coach or the sprint coach or the skills guy. Like I gravitated towards those guys.
Right.
But in America, in my opinion, that stuff was on a plate for you all the time. You know, the ability to go and shoot on a court as much as you want wasn't available to me when I was younger. So just those kind of things, that having that ability to get better because of what's in front of you in America, I think gives you a better opportunity. And also another thing as well is I feel like you get a confidence from playing there that you might not be able to build as much here. You know, you talk about being in the NCAA in certain places, you're practically a professional athlete without the paycheck. You've got professional facilities, professional coaches, professional, you know, the way you travel, like everything's like you're a professional club. You're just not getting paid. So when they come back to say the BBL, where you know the level is probably higher than what they've been playing at, but in their mind, it's not as professional or it's not as glamorous. Yeah. So I feel like they're very confident when they come back because of that, and that's good to have, obviously. But like you said before, there's a lot of people that go to America, and even though all of that stuff is on a plate most of the time, there's a lot of other distractions that pull them away from it.
Right. That's interesting. Yeah. So actually, they don't come back having necessarily developed, and the on the play part as well. That's interesting because that's the sentiment I get from guys that come back. Everything was there. The nutrition coach is there, and they're checking in with you all the time. And the S&C coach is there, and they're checking in with you. And to your point, you as a British player don't get it handed to you. So you were just, because you loved it and because you wanted to get better and because you're competitive, you just went and did it yourself. You went to the S&C coach, you went to the skills coach, and you're just developing yourself because you wanted to get better and you wanted to get to the next level and test yourself, which is kind of what you have to do if you're in the UK, because the structures aren't there to necessarily just exactly. have it handed to you, because it's almost like in America, like it's, I suppose, on a plate is the best way to put it, right? I mean, that's just the way they do it over there. So if you're good enough, then you're going to develop, and they're going to give you you're going to get it fed to you. But over here, it's just got to be you having the volition to do it yourself, essentially, which is an interesting way to look at it. I never really quite thought about it like that, but it almost is as black and white as that in a way.
And that is the most basic form of it. I'm not saying that, it is that way all the time in England and it is that way all the time in America. It's not the case. We know that. But yeah, I feel like that is probably
as a general rule.
Difference.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah. And I never thought about it like that, but you just articulated pretty well there. So that's certainly something for younger players to think about if they're going over there, that they need to be in a good situation when they get over there. So make sure that, I think that was one of the things I had Lloyd Gardner on, and he said sometimes when they're giving advice to Barking Abbey players, that they'll say to them, I don't think this is necessarily a great situation for you, because you're going into a team where you're not going to play and you're going to sit on the bench behind this guy for the next year or two, or whatever the reason is. So they might decide that he doesn't think it's the best idea, but it's ultimately the person's decision. But I suppose looking at it selfishly, when you're in the UK, you want these guys to come back or stay and just develop in the UK if you can to make the British League better. But it might just be case by case, you know. It might be he should go, he should stay.
Yeah.
It needs to be like that, right? It's not a general rule for everyone. It's not like everybody should stay. Yeah, that's an interesting one. It just keeps coming up in conversation, and it's just one that's very interesting to try and figure it out. Okay, that's kind of. I wanted to ask you about that decision to the UK. So then after, how did it come about? So you were with Riders, and then you were also playing with Loughborough. How important was Rob Paternoster? Because I talked to Flinder Boyd. Do you know Flinder Boyd? He played GB.
Yeah, I do very well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you would have been there with the year he went. Right. Really good guy. Actually, it's worth checking out the podcast if you like Flinder. He's some funny stories on the podcast. I'll send you the link after.
Appreciate it.
And he said Rob. He just had really good things to say about Rob. For you, like, how important was he for you when you went to Leicester in terms of you staying there? Because it seems like you have or he's kind of been one of the reasons maybe that you've been there.
100%. My thing with coaches is if I'm playing for you, I do or die by what you want to do. You're the coach, so like whatever you want to do, I'm down. And if I'm not, then I'll go somewhere else. Like I'll literally be like, I can't play for you because this isn't going to work for me. So with Rob, with that mindset, you know, it worked really well for both of us because he helped me. He told me what he wanted of me. He was always straight with me. And then on the flip side, he looks at me and he's like, I've got somebody who's doing exactly what I asked of them all the time and giving that extra effort. So I feel like our relationship grew over the years. Yeah, man, you know, I don't have a bad word to say about Rob. I really don't. I like him as a person. I like him as a coach. And I consider him a really good friend.
That's awesome. Amazing. And then what about, so, okay, we covered Rob. What about like being able to kind of come up with Connor Washington? Because you guys seem to almost follow a similar path. I assume you guys are best mates at this point and you know each other inside out, and like, but it's amazing how the two of you kind of had a very, I would say this was a similar trajectory, but like you kind of came up together and stayed on the same path, but also both became very good players in your own right. You know what I mean? So has that been kind of fun to be able to share the journey with them, I suppose?
Yeah, for sure. I've actually had that relationship with a couple of other people too, like Miles, for instance. But Connor specifically, there were times where we weren't playing. Like the first year, first season, pretty much, we were sat there just watching games.
I've been there.
Yeah, right. And it sucks, man. Like it sucks because
it does suck. Like there's no two ways about that. Like it sucks, and you can say what you like, but like you're sitting on the bench, you're like, why am I even doing this? Like, and you know, you're looking at the guys in the court, you're like, I could contribute and all that kind of stuff. But it just depends on what the coach needs. So you have to go with that, right?
And Connor was probably more confident than I was. I think I was sat there, kind of like, please let me play. Like I want to go, but at the same time, I was humble enough to say, well, the guys that are playing ahead of me, you know, they've proven that they should be. I haven't yet. And it was just kind of like a fuel. It wasn't like I was hating on Rob or, you know, a lot of people used to say to me, man, it's messed up. You don't play. You should be playing. But I knew that if I were, and that's what I'm saying about Rob, I earned what I got from him. He didn't give it to me. He gave me an opportunity to be there, of course. You know, you could argue I earned that too. But over the time, me and Connor just earned a little bit more respect, a little bit more game time, a little bit more responsibility. And it just grew and grew and grew. And to be honest with you, one of the biggest games that I remember where I felt like, wow, like I've really, you know, took a big leap here with Rob. It was the cup final? It was either the cup final. Yeah, it must have been the cup final. You know, I wasn't a starter or anything like that. But I remember in the finals that year, we won the cup, the playoff, and the league. And I go to the playoff because I remember that more vividly. Pavel Levonsky, I think his name was, is how you say his name correctly, sorry. He was the guy that was starting ahead of me. And he subbed him out, put me in, and I played so much in that game compared to what I'd played all season. And I remember having a conversation with Rob at some point about it. I can't remember when it was. And he was saying, like, you earned that. Like, like you earned that opportunity and you took it with both hands and we won. And I played pretty well that game. And I remember that being the turning point pretty much.
Yeah. And it's interesting. And again, like if you're a younger player, to stay the course and have the humility to I guess it's a bit of humility and just that kind of recognition that if I stay with this, as long as you believe in yourself and there's when you get in, you're gonna just do your best, make your best effort. I think it's very tough to be on the bench, especially when you're younger. But the fact that you recognize that the guys ahead of you were proven and that you were potentially going to get an opportunity, and when you get in, if you played well, that's how you earn the trust, and then that's how you get in and play more minutes. And you stuck that course. Was it like, were you and Connor both like on the same page? Like, we'll get our minutes, we'll get in there, we'll do our job together. Like, it was good to have him there to kind of, you're not just sitting there on your own, kind of going, this is terrible. Like,
yeah, no, definitely. We lived together as well.
right,
for a lot of the time that we played. As long as I was getting better. I'm sure he thought, I can't speak for Connor, but I assumed that he had a similar mindset. As long as I was getting better, I didn't mind. I didn't mind, how much I was playing on the weekend, as long as I was getting better in the week. And the players that we were surrounded by, it was impossible not to get better.
Yeah. You guys had a strong team, and you had that kind of championship kind of mentality. You played defense. You were doing well. Yeah, and you do see what other guys in the league, like Glasgow, they have some Scottish guys, and like there's a kid there, Johnny Bunyan, and again, would have came from a lower league. Instead of just dropping out, which some guys do on the Rocks, some Scottish guys, young guys do, he stayed with us, and he eventually earned the trust and also the confidence to play at that level. And you kind of becomes more normal, and then eventually he got more minutes, and I just noticed looking from afar, it was kind of the same with you. You started to get more minutes. And I think I remember that particular game when you came in. I was still watching the BBI quite a bit. And it was like, okay, you got your chance and you played really well when you came in. Yeah, I kind of was thinking it was going to happen anyway because I played against you. I knew you were good enough at that point. But that was cool, yeah. Yeah, I pretty much knew as soon as you stepped on the court, you were going to be able to play at that level. So yeah, then did you guys have a season? That's kind of skipping the timeline a bit, but then you guys ended up playing in Europe with the Riders. What was that like? That was pretty recently, wasn't it? It was like in the last.
Yeah, that was not last season, the season before.
Yeah, I heard Russell was talking about that, and he was kind of saying he's like he maybe jumped into it a little quick, but he said you competed in a few games and. You kind of it was like a trial. I mean, you guys might not have seen like that, but I think from a management point of view, he wasn't sure how it was going to go. So he said that, but you ended up being able to compete in some of the games, and you were like, maybe one more player could have pushed you over the top, and there's definitely scope to try it again. How did you feel about like the going in there, and then how do you think you did?
Going into it, man, it was. I can't even put into words how. I don't even know what the word is to describe that. Amazing, incredible, really, yeah. Like
because it was a British club. Like, is because you're going in with a British club to European Championships? Is that?
I mean, yeah, being one of the first teams to do it in a very long time is incredible to be a part of.
Yeah.
But just the opportunity to go and play in the Champions League and the Euro, like my career's been all over the place, but I didn't think I was going to end up playing in those two leagues for a British team.
The,
I didn't see that coming.
It hadn't been done. He mentioned it hadn't been done since like the 90s or something. Like I don't know if it was the London Towers or something like that. But yeah, just hearing that was pretty cool. And he said like we want to go back. Like it's not like we'd like to try and get back there and try and do it again. So and then there was like questions like do you need some like high pay guys to come in and get you over the top? And he was like, look, we got pretty close with the guys we had, so I think we're confident we could get back there and do it. Like got some strong British players, so interesting to see that, and it's good to see the aspiration is there. That the confidence is there that they can do it. And they said financially it was a bit costly, but that's a management thing, I suppose. And if you get success, then I think the financial side will take care of itself. Okay, that's pretty cool. So then tell me how you ended up. So then one of the other stop-offs was Australia.
Yeah.
What was that like? I mean, like, where did it come out of? And because I just heard, I was in London. I moved then from Scotland, or I moved back to the UK to Durham. Yeah, I think we played against each other there very quickly. And then I went to London, and then I was like, someone told me, "Oh, Jamell Anderson has gone to Australia," and I was like, "All right." So how did that all come about, or what was the experience like? And was it any good of a level? Like, was it like similar to BBL or?
Yeah, very similar to the BBL.
Okay.
You've got guys that were and still are currently playing in the NBL. So the season that runs alongside our season over here, which obviously, is full of all kinds of high-level players. So the teams were tough, like really tough. Like 1 through 7 on every team would be a tough, matchup every night.
So they rotated like 7 guys in, they could all play, like basically.
Yeah, like what I'm saying is on average, you guaranteed to have 7 good players, like really good players.
Okay, and then maybe a drop off then.
It could be a drop off, or it could be, 9 players.
10
you know
players,
what I mean?
okay.
So yeah, exactly. But yeah, it was, man, absolutely one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life. Being able to go to the other side of the world is something that I never considered really at any point. And it all happened so quickly. So I was playing with Cheshire at the time, and my point guard was Josh Wilshere.
Yeah.
And he brought it up over like lunch one day. He was like something about, Australia this. And I was like, wait, what? He's like, oh yeah, I'm going to go play in Australia when this is done. I was like, you mean just like right at the end, you're going to start another season? He was like, yeah. And that was the first time that I even knew people did that. Yeah. That was the first time.
How old are you? That's crazy, because I just someone literally just told me last week that they run a league in Malaysia during the summer as well, and I heard like at another year like Mexico do a league during the summer as well. So it's like there's these other leagues that exist that you can play right the way through the year. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So then was he a bit like, do you want to see if they're looking for a small forward or whatever it was?
Again, like super relaxed and very quick. He was just like, I can tell them about you if you want. I'm like trying to keep it composed. So I'm like, yeah, all right, whatever. But in my head, I'm like, oh my God.
I'm going to Australia.
So he told him about me, and within probably a week, 2 weeks, I signed a contract.
No way. Okay, that's crazy. So did you just send them some film, and he kind of vouched for you obviously as well? They kind of, no, just kind of
send him anything. He told them who I was. I think they Googled it. They liked what they saw, and that was it.
Jeez, that's crazy. So did you how many months is that then? Is that you kind of there for 6 months, or is it over the summer?
Yeah, I think it's 4 or 5 months.
4 or 5 months.
It's close to 6, but yeah, I'm not sure.
And what's the league like style-wise? Is it up and down, or is it more structured and more structured? Is it less?
No. It is very up and down. But like I said, there's a lot of players that are playing in the NBL, and there's a lot of players that are vets as well. So it's kind of a mixture of the two, depending on what position the vets are playing in.
Okay, right. Okay, because it's been run So the NBL runs, and then this league runs. Then, so there'll be some guys that will actually be from the NBL in that. Okay, so
That's
some
right. That's right.
high level guys then on a few teams then.
Yeah, and a lot of the NBL teams have what's called development players, and I think you have like 5 of those. I'm pretty sure on each team. So you imagine that these young, very good players, talented guys, are now going into this league and being like, right, it's my turn to shine now.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of hungry guys, Yeah,
and so some of those guys are very talented. They're being waiting to be brought up to the, and they might be very young. They might be like 18, but they're ridiculously talented. Okay, so you saw some good players over there. Interesting. Okay, and then you went from there to Spain. La Roda, and this was one where I saw all the assists. You're just diamond, getting into the lane and just dishing it off. I was like, oh my God, the first 10 highlights were assists. Like, this guy's evolving every year. What was it? Okay, so yeah, it was like Leb Silver, which is a really good like level, right? I mean, the Leb Gold level is better than most first leagues in Europe, as far as what I hear. So like the Leb Silver must have still a very good level. Again, I know guys that have played in it, but yeah, what was that like versus, let's say, the BBL, like the style of it? Because just for anyone that kind of, a lot of guys wouldn't have played in that kind of.
I don't know if Leb Silver's always been like this, but when I got there, it was very young. I'm not talking like 18-year-olds young, but like, there were young 20s, a lot of young 20s on a lot of these teams. So
and were they like feeder teams? Were they like, is it similar to the like? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, some of them were. Gosh, the names went out of my head like that. There's an ACB team that begins with B, but I can't remember. And they had a feeder team, and that team was really young. Right. But again, hungry, super athletic, super strong. So, it didn't feel like you were playing against younger players. Definitely still got the same beating. But yeah, I felt like every time we was playing, I felt quite intelligent, like compared to what I was playing against.
Right. Okay. Interesting. So, just because you probably had more experience at this point, and you're like,
yeah, they were very rushed. Everything was too quick. Everyone was trying to do things at 100% speed, and I'd already been playing the BBL and kind of had more of an understanding of pace.
Right.
So I definitely grew a lot when I was in Spain, just because I realized actually, I'm playing here in terms of my intelligence, and it made me feel even smarter, and I just learned a lot.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because the tempo there, just from talking to guys who have played in Spain, there's just a different style there, and it is quite, like you said, frenetic almost. Like it's like the way some of the leagues are played over there. But it's interesting that I guess when you've played that long in a pro league like the BBL, you just have a bit more poise when it comes to, and then you go to a league like that where there's younger players there. They're not going to have that experience because they're probably just stepping up to that level, or they're just a bit younger. So you kind of have almost like a veteran. So when was that? That was 2 years ago, was it? That you were in the Spanish one? Was it 2017?
Yeah, 2 years ago.
2017. I was trying to get the dates on here. Okay, interesting. So that's kind of like you kind of starting to, and that's what I was saying when we came on. You're just from watching the highlights, you could see even when you play for Cheshire, I mean, it was mostly jump shots. You're a jump shooter, and I remember when you were younger, it was definitely I think if anyone coach had been there, they'd have been like, well, you probably let him shoot because you got a quick first step and you were fairly explosive around the rim. So it would be like try and back off of him. It's not that you couldn't shoot, but with the same consistency, whereas you were actually kind of doing catch and shoot stuff in a lot of the highlights in Cheshire. So it was just interesting to see that you kind of added that part to become a consistent outside shooter, which then allows you to be more dynamic. You can then start shot fake and take a step in, and guys have to come, and then you can then assist. So it opens everything up once you're able to consistently shoot the 3 ball. So that was something. Was that something you added then in the off season? Was that something you focused on?
Um, my my development in terms of what I've been trying to do has always been the same. You know, even back then when you were saying like, you know, I didn't really shoot that much. I shot a lot in training.
Yeah,
Took a
probably.
lot
Yeah.
of shots.
Yeah. Yeah.
Worked on my form. You know, I was constantly trying to get better at shooting. It was just the latter stages of this I started to actually put it into
Put
practice
it in practice.
because
Gotcha.
there's been so many moments in my career where I've kind of been like light bulb, or someone said something in this light bulb.
Right.
And one of the things that was a big one for me was that I was working harder than everyone else around me in terms of staying after practice, getting to practice early, doing extra stuff. But then I wasn't using it on the court. I wasn't practicing it in games.
Right.
So it's like I had all these skills, but then when I got to the game, I didn't actually try and do any of it. And it got to a point where I was like, actually, I need to start doing it in games. And to begin with, it was tough. Like, I'm missing or doing things wrong or whatever else. But you get better at it, obviously.
Yeah.
And that's really been the biggest change, I'd say.
Yeah, and you could see, like, there was this clip of you that I was going to show you, and it was of you when you're like 20, and it was the hoops fix clips again. But like, it shows a lot of dunks, but it also shows you had really quick feet, you had really good hands, you had you were able to make passes, your vision was really good, you had all the tools there, and it was like you were saying when I saw you when you were younger. You were raw and you were able to do all those things, but yeah, I still noticed that you had that little hesitation for shooting, but you were well able to shoot. So it was a case of getting on that level with those guys, taking those shots, hitting those shots, and then being comfortable. Like, I've added this to my game now, and I'm comfortable doing it in the game. And then you slowly add it piece by piece, and you get better and better. So that was interesting to see that, and that you've been able to do that over the years and add stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so I've got another question here. Who did you learn the most from in the Riders as a player? I'm going to guess. Can I guess?
Yeah, go ahead.
Even though he's not necessarily exactly your position, maybe he is actually. Drew Sullivan? Would you say you learned a lot from like a guy like that? You better say yes, by the way, because if he hears it and you say no, you'd be like, all right, last time we chat. Was there a guy in particular that like on the team that like helped mentor you a bit, or did you just kind of like work away at things yourself?
I just kind of took pieces from everyone. So
okay.
Curtis, remember I told you Curtis Xavier was my coach. He told me from young, like being versatile was one of the most amazing things. Like, you know, be able to do everything. Shoot, dribble, play defense, lead, communicate, everything. So every year, even till now, I'm watching everyone on my team and I'm seeing what they're doing well, and I'm trying to figure out how they're doing it well. So yeah, Drew clearly was one of those people. But I wouldn't say that I focused heavily on Drew, or, you know, he was my mentor in any way. I think I just tried to take bits from everybody around me.
Yeah, you see, I like what he does there with that. Like, you're right. Like, I mean, I would sometimes look at point guards and you'd see stuff they're doing. And you're like, that I could, you know, I can take that. That's something that I'd like to try and practice doing. And it could be a big guy with a floater or just something that they do on the court that you just pick up and go. And it might not even be on your team, right? So I guess it doesn't always have to be one necessarily guy. You can learn from everyone. I'm still watching stuff on TV these days, and you'll see someone do something, you're like, that's a really smart play, or a really good thing to do that you haven't seen before. So yeah, I feel that. Okay, so GB. We talk about GB. I saw like a video clip of you today. It sounds like I'm stalking you here, but obviously I have to do some research for the podcast. I can't just come on and be like, I don't know anything that's happened since I last saw you, Jamell. So just to clear that up. Yeah, which guy most impressed you? Again, this is kind of like the last question. Maybe it's a bit like, but impressed you is different, right? So like, which guy really like turned up and you're almost surprised, like, oh, this guy's better than I thought he was? Anyone in particular? You could say no again. Nobody.
Man, there's so many guys. Like that's a long list of people that I could talk about.
But was there anyone you in particularly you were like, I didn't think he was that good? Maybe not. Maybe there's nobody.
No, it's a great question. I'm just thinking about it.
You can name like two or all right, yeah.
Okay, I'll tell you a story, right?
Okay, cool.
So the first time I got invited to a men's camp was at St. George's Park. I can't remember what year it was, but they had this big camp. Everyone was there. Justin, Miles, I think Devin was there, Andrew Lawrence, everyone pretty much. And I'm guarding Justin, and he like drove to the right, and I kind of got my chest in the way, like he went into my chest, and then I sat down a bit more, And in my mind, I'm like, this is where I can show what I can bring to this team. Right. So I'm feeling good. I didn't do any. I didn't say anything or like gloat or anything like that. But I was like, I showed that I was like, yeah, I'm here. Like, get past me.
Right.
And it's funny because I've never told this story like socially. By the way, I only told this to like my closest friends, and I'm like, you can't tell no one about it. So Justin, he kind of looked at me, and it's like he read my mind. It's like he knew that I felt good that I just got my chest in front of him, and he was kind of like, well, I was gonna. It's like his face said, like I was gonna pass it, but now I'm gonna have to show you that you didn't stop me. You know. And all I remember is him going, like I didn't see the ball. I just seen him go like this, and I didn't move, but my ankle just went. And it's the only time in my whole career that's ever happened. I've never had my ankle broke.
Or did you actually? But you actually twisted.
I didn't move. My ankle moved. It was like, my ankle was like, we're going to move. And then my body was like, no, we're not. And that was it. And I didn't tell no one. I didn't tell the physio because I was so it was getting to the point where it was time to get picked. And I didn't want to, mess anything up. But my ankle like swelled up. I was icing it quietly, like in my room. I didn't tell no one. And that, to me, that day, I was like, wow, he's got another level to him that I've not even seen yet.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And it's only when you go up to the next level, you're like, oh, this guy could eat me for breakfast. Yeah. I've had that where you're like, I couldn't stay in front of this guy if I tried. Like, this guy's really quick. Or that's really interesting. Yeah, Justin Robinson he's. I think when I was talking to my mate, Ian Berry, he was kind of saying like Justin's one of those guys he thinks is maybe the best player on. I think it was he was playing for London
Lions.
Was it London Lions he plays for last year? Yeah, we went to watch the game against the Royals.
Oh, okay.
And he said he felt like Justin was the best player on the court. Obviously, differences in opinion, but he certainly rated him pretty high on the court anyway. And you could see he just had that poise as well. Didn't he play? He played in Spain. I'm pretty sure he played at a high level in Spain. So you could see that he was a bit of a different level.
Greece.
What's that? Oh, was it Greece? Was it Greece?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, right. I thought it was Spain. Okay. Interesting. Okay, so that's a good story. I can't believe you actually injured your ankle. Like, I thought you were just going to say like you kind of slipped or he kind of got by it, but you actually injured you. But you hadn't actually moved as well.
I hadn't moved. Just my ankle just went.
Right. Nice. Okay. Okay, I got a question for you. So with the GB team, do you think like is there an aspiration, or have you even talked about it on the team with looking at trying to qualify for the Olympics, or is it just kind of like let's just stick to the process and not try and have goals to? Do you think that's what what's the next goal for the team, or is it just let's just get better and focus on the next training? Do you know?
I don't know.
There's no
my communication with GB is very minimal. Obviously I had an opportunity in the last window, went to Bosnia. I can't remember specifically the city, but yeah, that was my opportunity. I took it, and I just wait for the next one.
Right, so you just wait and see. So it's not like a back and forth thing where you guys are constant communication.
Not with me personally, maybe with
some other guys. Okay, interesting. That's probably a whole other podcast, the GB communication thing. I'm sure that's been brought up before, like with other players not reaching out to guys and stuff. Like it's yeah, we won't go down the rabbit hole.
No comment.
Yeah, I don't know enough about the subject anyway. You'd probably have to ask almost the guys, the team, and then even at that, like because it's political, it's like it's kind of up to the organization to kind of address those issues. It's not for us to discuss.
No.
Okay, how are we doing here? 8:00. Okay, not bad. Okay, I'm going to go with the last three questions because I could probably sit here and chat for another hour. Okay, the next version of Jamell Anderson, what does that look like? Jamell 3.0, let's call him, or something like that.
I can't tell you that.
No, like so like as in like, okay, if let's say if me and you're going down the gym and you're like, this summer I'm working on this. I mean, it doesn't matter, right? They're not going to necessarily be able to stop it. But is there like, like LeBron would come back and he's got a post game or something like, is there something you're like, this season I just want to be able to do this really well? Is there anything, or do you have, or do you not want to say?
No, I'll be honest. I don't mind. It's ball handling.
Interesting.
Again, back to my fiance, who is also my life coach, my basketball coach. Like she's great. We had a conversation when the lockdown started. I was doing real heavy training at home. I was running almost 15K a week. Like, I was doing some serious training.
Cross country stuff, Jamell.
Yeah, I've still got it. I ran 11K in 45 minutes. Yeah, light work. Apparently.
11K in 45 minutes. That's that's good.
So we it was after that program had finished. I did a 6-week program. And I said to Georgia, I said, listen, I feel like it's almost like, why am I doing this? Because if I look back at last season, fitness was it wasn't an issue.
Right.
There was no part of the season where I was like, oh, this part of my fitness should be better or whatever. No, not the case. So I said, why am I working so hard on this part of me and neglecting the other parts of me? Because obviously I couldn't get on a basketball court. Well, indoor.
That's true. Yeah.
So anyway,
that was probably the only thing you could do then is do something.
And that was the byproduct of the conversation. And I said, and she said to me, well, what part of your game last year was the weakest? And I thought about it for a bit and I said, well, probably ball handling. It wasn't that ball handling got me into trouble, but I wouldn't say there was a part of the year where I felt like my ball handling was, giving me more opportunity. So
right. Yeah.
We went to work.
Okay. Interesting. Good stuff. I'm going to start looking at the games now. Start looking at all the games. Are they streamed actually? Are they streamed actually?
Yeah. You mean like last season? Or are you talking about the next season?
Like this season coming, and then were they probably last season as well, right? Did they stream the games on
they're
Facebook
all on YouTube. Every game's on YouTube.
Okay. I need to start following again. Yeah, I just did one more season in this league over here. So I kind of took my eyes off the BBL because I'm just back here for the first year.
Okay.
Which is why I just wanted to start the kind of podcast to kind of see what the landscape was like over here. But then obviously I had some contacts in the UK. So just to get guys on and maybe expose people in this country to the BBL, because I mean, it's really, that's a better league than the Super League and it's right beside us. So, there should be a little bit more cross-pollination, I think, between the two. But again, it's just about conversations that are probably not happening this kind of way should. It's a bit it's like siloed or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so so that's what you're going to be working on, handles. I think that's a great thing as a guy who plays in the perimeter, your size. It's just going to help you, right? It's just going to be able to tighter handles, get you in better situations. It makes a lot of sense.
For sure.
Okay, trying to keep to the time limit here. A message to you, if you had a message to younger players about developing. I kind of covered this one. I feel like you put it very well. You said in America, for example, and again we're generalizing, so we're not saying this is the case all the time, but there's more chance that you'll have things a bit more on a plate, whereas in the UK, if you're a younger player, or Ireland, things like S&C, nutrition, all the stuff that gets you into the, how do we say, the right shape, or everything apart from the actual on the court stuff, you have to go and do that yourself, is the message.
Even on the court stuff to a certain degree.
Even on the court stuff, like the ball handling, all that stuff. You're not going to have a skills coach there.
Like the amount of competition, the level of the competition. You know, there's a lot of players in England that are playing under 18 level that shouldn't be playing at that level anymore because their ability surpasses where they are, but there's nowhere else for them to go. So I think, you know, again, in America, I just feel like there's more opportunities, but that's not everywhere. So, you know, it depends on the player.
Depends on the player. Yeah, I agree with that. Interesting. So, what's this? Oh yeah, you're doing I don't know why, but do you want to do a plug for the Leicester Riders Camp 2000? It's the 2nd to the 7th of August.
Look it up.
What's that?
Look it up. There's an opportunity on a plate.
Right, that's true. Actually, yeah. Well, it's not free, and I saw that. I saw the price. I was like, okay, it's not free. But then, camps are generally not free, anywhere. So, cool. What about? Okay, final one. So, BBL. This you might not have an opinion, or you might on this one. Again, a hot topic, and kind of beat this one to death. I think people do is like the league. From a player's perspective, and again, this is one of these ones that's just beaten to death, but how does it grow, like the BBL? Do you have an opinion on it? Like, do you think?
Again,
it's a bit too tough.
How much time have we got? Right?
that's a whole nother podcast.
That's a huge question, you know.
Yeah, it is. It is a huge question. Okay. Yeah. Did you have you ever thought about this? Have you ever actually all the time? Right?
Man. Hours conversations. I have conversations with people in my family who know nothing about basketball, and we'll talk about it for hours. You know what I mean? Because you don't need to know basketball necessarily to understand how to make a business. You know, so
yeah, that's true.
I mean, what do I know? You know, like I'm not part of the business in terms of how to make the BBL what it is. I've only been in the BBL 10 years, which actually, now I think about it, it's quite a long time.
Yeah, it's quite a long time. Plus, you've played abroad, you've seen other leagues, you've kind of seen how they work a little bit. And that gave me an insight into how you could successfully, like when I played in Germany and came back and saw the VBL, I was like, there's things they're doing over there that they're not doing over here. And this could be one thing that they could do, something like that.
You know? It's, for me, it feels like a culture thing. I would love to see, like, okay, when I was younger, I loved basketball. When I was about 11, 10, maybe even younger, loved Space Jam, had a hoop in the back garden all the time, playing all day, every day. And then it gets to a point where I get distracted by something else because I'm not channeled into basketball. There wasn't those opportunities when I was a kid. And if they were, I never considered them. My parents never considered them. But if it was football, as soon as I kicked to football, it was like, oh, you want to play football? Oh, well, you can go to this team, you can go to this team, you can do this, that. So I would love to see in England where, as a kid, you see basketball as something I can do rather than just something I do. I don't think I don't think that the kids that are playing basketball now at a young age have that seed in their mind that's like, I can be big time NBA player. I can, you know, like talk about it materialistically too, like get rich, make a lot of money, have a big house, drive that Ferrari that I run. They don't connect the dots. But with football, you see it. It's in your face all the time. They're on the papers, they're on TV, they're driving fancy cars. So you make that connection really quickly at a young age that if I keep playing football and I get good at it, I can play for Man United, I can play for Arsenal. but I just feel like basketball doesn't have that connection. Yeah. So someone like myself who actually became a professional basketball player, I didn't have that seed at a young age.
Mm. But the fact that you kind of stayed with it and just were in some good situations and also worked your ass off and loved it, which is quite evident, obviously. That's what kept you in it. Like, it wasn't that you necessarily were put into a situation where they said you can be a pro. You didn't know any of this. In fact, you were late to it. So like,
no, I was told that maybe 2 years after playing. So
yeah, and even then, if you ask people in the BBL, like people will say like, oh, there's no money to be made in the UK. Like, there's actually the opposite. It's actually, the sentiment is like, it's not seen as a business. It's like, it's almost like, I think is it the ISO podcast from Chuck? He said something really good when he was talking to Justin and there's two other podcasts. The Juice podcast. Have you seen any of those podcasts? Maybe not. Anyway, they're guys, and he said something like he stopped looking at it like a charity almost thing on the side. You need to look at it a bit more like a business and sell the kind of dream. And another coach said to me, like, I know you didn't go down this route, but like a Division I scholarship that, you said you were offered from Stony Brook, they're worth roughly $250,000 if you look into the tuition fees, the accommodation, food, travel expenses, all that kind of stuff. $250,000. Yep. Someone said to you, like, that's what you can have just when you get to uni. And then if you do well, you can go play. If you get to a top tier team in Europe, you can play for 6 figures a year, and have expense free as well. So people don't see that in the UK. They see that in the rugby league, like you said. They see that in soccer, but a rugby union or whatever. But they don't see it for basketball. You're right. It's a good point. I don't know if you want to go into schools telling kids that, but there's something there that's missing, right?
But
maybe you do.
There isn't like any evidence that they're gonna make that money. When you're in America, from the minute you understand basketball, the NBA, and okay, those guys are superstars.
Yeah, true.
The British kids don't have those idols to look up to because none of us are big time like that. We're not millionaires. We're not walking around. We're not in the papers. We're not in TV shows. Like,
and there's it's a good point. But like, there's not many guys that have been able to trailblaze. Like Lual has gone over there. Pops is kind of, he's been in the NBA and he's done it and he's played at that level. But there's not many other guys that have been able to break through and come back and say, I did it.
Oh,
you can do it.
Sorry,
there's only a couple of guys.
Don't get me wrong. There's plenty of British passport holders, basketball players that are rich from playing basketball. I'm not saying that. That's definitely not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying they're not here. They're not branded. They're not,
Right.
You know what I'm trying to say.
So like they're not playing in the British league. They're not, like, kids can go up and watch them play in the UK.
Yeah, and they're not idolized. And
that's true.
I don't know whose fault that is, but I feel like if things were done differently, then these people would be idolized.
Yeah, like there needs to be some more media attention, whatever it needs to be, just to get them. Yeah, I see what you're saying, to promote them essentially, and to kind of, the same way soccer players are kind of put on a pedestal when they're the best in their country. Yeah.
Example, right? When you were talking about the Hoops Fix videos and all that kind of stuff, like, I was getting that attention from those videos, right?
Yeah.
And maybe some people saw that and was like, oh wow, let me go to a Leicester Riders game.
That's true. Yeah.
Those days, I was getting the bus to the game. So I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with the bus. That's not my point.
Yeah.
But you imagine yourself, right, as someone who hasn't played basketball before, and I've just piqued your interest because you saw a video and you think, ooh, what's this about? So I'm going to go watch a game. And you go sit on the bus, and the guy sat next to you is one of the professional players that you're going to go pay to see.
Yeah.
Whether you subconsciously or consciously know at that point, you knew that you weren't going to chase that basketball dream no more. You knew it. Like, you just knew it.
Because I'm sitting on the bus next to the guy I was just watching that's going to play. Yeah, that's true.
The image just isn't right. And I hate that the world is like that.
Right. Yeah,
but it's true.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. You have to, it has to be a certain position at a certain way so that it becomes a bigger thing. Like even the NBA, at the end of the day, it's a bunch of guys that are, okay, there's some amazing players in the NBA, don't get me wrong. But like if you remove the razzmatazz, a bunch of guys throwing a basketball around, like amazing. But like it's everything around it that makes it, that gives it that buzz. You take that's why people put music in their highlight clips, right? Because it just adds to the, everything is just, it's more emotive, and then that's what gets people excited to go to the game. If you remove the edits and all that stuff at the end of the day, it's so we need more razzmatazz. Is that the takeaway?
Pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, before Hoops Fix, what was there? Like there was nothing. And they weren't, like, you got to run it like it's a business, and then you got to have marketing and you got to position it. That's got to be the way.
You said before Hoops Fix, what was there, right?
Yeah.
Now we have Hoops Fix. What else is there?
Yeah, there's nothing. If Hoops Fix,
there's a bunch of Instagram pages. I've seen that. That's awesome. You know, we're all happy to see that. But we haven't took any further steps. Like,
it's more obvious when you say it out loud. Like it's crazy. If Sam wasn't doing all his work, like exactly who would be getting visibility or publicity or whatever you want to call it, promotion? Probably not very many people. So
and do you blame them? I'm surprised that a lot of these guys have continued to do what they're doing, not getting paid. They're doing this just for the love of the game.
As in playing, or you mean like as in the...
No, I'm talking about people that are trying to sell the game of basketball in England.
Yeah.
They're not getting paid to do it. Like,
yeah, like it's not like Sam's, I'm using Sam, but like he's the main guy that does it, right?
Yeah.
There's Dave Owen, there's a couple of other dudes.
Yeah.
But let's just take Sam. Like if he's not getting paid, like to do it, he's doing it off his own back, and he loves it. So it's literally for the love of the game, which is incredible. But there's got to be a similar effort in the organization side of it, I guess. There has to be, because if that level of effort, if they just employed him to get to go and do it then, and do it as part of Basketball England or something like, or basketball, whatever it is, GB basketball, then, at least then he's got the resource to go and put the time in. But it's like, that's interesting. And I think that's more what's missing. And it's not pointing fingers. It's just something that's probably missed in the conversation, right? It's the wrong people at the table talking about the wrong thing or missing that. But that's definitely an interesting point. And now that I'm saying out loud, it seems so obvious, but the promotion aspect of it is definitely probably something that there's a gap.
Well,
safe to say.
Your child says to you now, look, I want to play basketball. I want to play basketball professionally in England. In your mind, you're not thinking, okay,
do that.
He's going to be set for life, or, he's going to end up buying me a house one day, because you're not. You're thinking, okay, he needs to make sure he gets his degree, make sure, you know what I'm trying to say. So
but that might be what it is right now. Like you could say, well, you could use basketball, as I said in another basket, as a vehicle to go get your education.
Oh, that's the other side of it all. Like,
that's a different point.
I am not bashing the BBL with what I'm saying. That was just
not at all. No.
I get to the next level.
Totally.
I've got my degree. I've met some incredible people in business, in basketball. I've had amazing experience. I've saved a lot of the money that I've made so I can get a house one day. So again, around people like Russell and those sorts of figures in the basketball world have given me great advice over the years. It's like what we said earlier. It's what you make of it. If you want to come to the BBL and live a high life and spend all your money, then at the end of it, you're gonna have no money. But
Yeah.
if you come here and you're smart and you make, connections and all that kind of stuff, then you can make it valuable.
Yeah, and actually, the kind of sell for maybe an American coming over is you can go to like maybe what I did with my masters. Like there was three Americans came over. They got their masters in Durham, decent school, went to a business school, got a free masters, and like
got paid.
They got paid, and they got to play basketball and got to go get a free masters. And I got my job in a bank straight after just because of it. So
yeah.
That's probably definitely an option to play it at a good level, but then also have something on the kind of back burner or like it be, that's going to take off once your career starts slow down in basketball. Then you have something else to start as a second career. Then, so
100%.
I think we're figuring it out, Jamell. I think we're figuring it out.
Hey, if they put me and you in charge,
I think we'll be fine. Yeah, we'll apply for jobs. There was something there that I was like, I thought about today. And again, this is weird that you said you talk about it a lot because I don't even live in the UK. I'm not even from the UK. And I was thinking about it today. I was like, the people that make the decisions to give the money to, I think I used the example of the skeleton instead of British basketball, which is ridiculous, obviously. At least in my head, that's crazy. We need to infiltrate that board, or say we UK people or someone from the basketball world needs to get into that table and push for it, because there's people from clearly lobbying from the soccer side that are getting, and from the skeleton side, but there's not basketball people in there. Because if there was, we definitely there's no voice at the table for basketball. It sounds like at that top level for the decision making, the important people in the room, there's no one from basketball. Maybe I'm wrong, but they're not selling it because we're all shouting. I can see like we're all shouting from down here, like send the money, but like nobody cares because they're like, well, you're not important, you don't work here, and we don't care. You can.
I honestly think it's the exact same thing about the kids when they look at it and they go, okay, football player, basketball player, really cool. Love everything. Get to talk to them after the game. I can see them at my local Asda, like really cool. But I want the Ferrari. And when I heard that they gave 16 million to rugby, I sat back and I was like, what? And then I thought about it and I was like, well, yeah, like when you think about it, it's more glamorous. Like it's glamorized. It's on TV. It's everywhere. So if you're sitting at a table and you've got a bunch of money, which power are you going to put it in? Now.
It's almost
compared to 16 million. Give us something.
Give it.
It's still £1 million. It's still a lot of money.
But how far does that go? I don't know. That's when it starts to become like it gets a bit unclear for me. But I did see that figure, and I saw. And then I heard like people saying, yeah, we got to take some responsibility individually. And I get that. But I think you need somebody, I was thinking about it, you need somebody at the table who's going to sell it and have a vision that they can sell for basketball for the future, like a leader who has
5 or 6.
what? 5 on 6?
I'm plugging in the company 506 right now.
Oh, 506. Right. Okay,
506. So 506 is a branding and marketing company who completely flipped how the riders look. Changed the logo, heavy on the branding, all that stuff. Joe Pinchin worked alongside 506 a lot.
Okay, interesting.
So he would sing their praises. I think if 506 were in a position where they were leading the BBL and going to these meetings and making big decisions, I think huge things would happen for this league.
Jamell, when you're finished playing basketball, that's your mission. But look, like that's what it takes. It takes in Irish rugby. I was talking to a guy from the heartland of Irish rugby. It's a place called Limerick, and he told me in the car. He's a business guy, and he told me there's a marketing company got a hold of the Irish rugby scene. just when it was kind of starting to get stronger too. So they were doing well in the Six Nations stuff. I don't know if you watch rugby. And he said that the marketing campaign, they got Guinness on board. They just it's all smoke and mirrors. But the point is, you just got to make a little bit of hype, a little bit of a hype train, and then all of a sudden people are like, oh, I want to go see that. So it's just a little bit of marketing, maybe. Okay, we covered a lot there. Dude, I'm aware of time. I've gone well over. We did an hour and a half, so not even close to what we said we do.
Sweat, man.
Happens every time. If I aim for 45 minutes, I get roughly an hour and a half. So, yeah, listen, Jamell, look, thanks a million for coming on. We covered so much stuff that I didn't have written down, which is brilliant. Hopefully, at some point, I'll be in the UK. If you're about, you're based in Leicester, so there's a very small chance I get up to Leicester. But if I do, I'll let you know. Maybe don't. But I'll definitely be watching your games next year.
Sure.
So look, yeah, mate, thanks for coming on. And best of luck for next season. I want to see those handles coming out your ears next year. You're a point guard.
I got you.
All right, cheers, Jamell. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'll chat to you again soon. All right.
Take care, bro.
Okay, take it easy.